Well, sign people off to take the written test.
Written
Yeah.
test, sorry.
But
I just sometimes my brain gets ahead of my mouth and I have to reel it back in. It's a painful process, especially when it happens in public, but it does
it's
happen
just that you're
surprisingly
so
often.
enthusiastic, and that's okay.
Pat, it's September, which means school is back in session across the United States. Fortunately, you and I are out of the age bracket where we have to worry about doing homework and getting our grades up. And let's face it, I wasn't doing that when I was in school. But, aviation actually fits really well into the high school environment. And maybe, if nothing, great starting point, just mentoring, whether you're a parent, a teacher, an administrator, just somebody who's involved in an extracurricular activity, you can mentor kids and help them find their way into an aviation career or a hobby that makes their career as a real estate developer or whatever much more beneficial because they know how to fly.
Yeah, one of my favorite things to do is give kids airplane rides. Especially those that
Mm.
may not really realize. Well, they don't know what they don't know. They don't know there's little airplanes out there that you can really go out and fly, or sometimes can even imagine that kind of a career is open to them. So whenever I do get an opportunity to give kids airplane rides, I jump at the chance, because just to see the look on their faces, during takeoff, just when you hand the controls over to them and let them fly the airplane, when they land, they get out of the airplane and they've got grins the size of a Cheshire cat, and they can't wait to do it again. It's awesome. It's a privilege to do it.
Oh, you're not kidding. I love it as well. And I must admit, I'm sneaky when I do it. Very often they just think they're going on a ride. And I start by teaching them how to taxi because they think it has something to
Yeah,
do
yeah.
with this. And it's all your feet. And that gets a little wonky, but they get their way through it. We're only going walking speed. And then when we get out to the runway, I say, put your feet on the rudders and your hands on the controls and just follow me through the takeoff. I'll talk you through it. And about 200 feet in the air, they realize I'm not doing anything. They're
Yeah.
doing it. And what was supposed to be a ride has now become an unforgettable, life changing experience because they actually fly the airplane for half an hour or so. And you're right, it just completely changes their outlook. I love that. And I'm very lucky that I get to
Yeah,
do it.
AOPA, as you know, offers a scholarship program, and for the last
Mhm.
how many years has it been now, Jamie? Five years
Oh,
thereabout.
yeah, at
We've
least.
given
Yeah.
away well over $1 million a year in scholarship money, and
Mhm.
I've been I've had the privilege of for the last 2.5 years, I guess, of mentoring our scholarship winners year to year through the program. The last 2 years, it's been about 140 kids each year, all over the country, and this year, started back in May, it's 225 kids from all over the country. And I appreciate your involvement in that too, because as you know, we do monthly webinars that are aimed at various things, talking to ATC, for example, and being comfortable with radio communications, or dealing with IACRA and the ACS, and various what a check ride will look like, what the oral may look like, what the flight may look like. Every month there's a different topic. In fact, you've got one coming up, and I appreciate your
September 11th.
help.
Yep. September 11th. I think I'm doing one on
Yep,
radio
yep.
procedures in
So, and I
ATC.
really do appreciate your being involved in that, because frankly they get tired of listening to my face. But it's just a real privilege, and so we gave away well over $1 million this year, and already we are, I don't remember the exact number, but we're at 7 or 8 kids that have already taken their check rides. There's another 4 or 5 that are on the list that have told me that they're on the cusp of their check rides. And when I know that, I send them some additional documentation to help them prepare. But we've got kids that have gotten their private, their commercial, different kids that have gotten their private. others that have gone out that have gotten their instrument rating, others that have got their flight instructor certificate, their commercial certificate. A couple of them have used the money for their multi-engine. Uh, we do have some scholarships that are reserved for teachers at the high school level. So that they can go and fulfill their dreams of either teaching aviation or perhaps getting into aviation as a vocation. But to have the privilege of being able to mentor these scholarship recipients to me is as much as I love being in the music business, and I love that, and as much as I
Well, and even beyond, I'm
well,
sorry, I didn't mean to
just to
interrupt
say,
you.
as
Go
much
ahead.
as I loved being in the music business, and I wouldn't have traded that for anything in the world, and much as I know that's the case for you. And as much as I enjoyed owning a flight school, as much as I've enjoyed being a flight instructor and a DPE, I'll tell you, being able to mentor these kids and help them go from zero to hero to cite a cliche, it's probably the best job I've ever had. It's certainly one of the most gratifying.
Well, and mentoring goes beyond, being Pat the DPE or Jamie the CFI who's teaching kids to fly. It's more than that. And you don't even have to have a strong
Right.
aviation background to help kids get there. You mentioned scholarships. AOPA has them, Experimental Aircraft Association has them, Women in Aviation International has them, and they actually give scholarships to
Right.
men too, to boys. You can go Google flight training scholarships. There's a whole list of opportunities out there, but adults can teach a kid how to seek out opportunities, how to present yourself at an interview. We can write letters
Yeah.
of recommendation for kids, and it doesn't matter if you're not, John Glenn or Alan Shepard or Bob Hoover. You're still an adult who says, "Yeah, I know this kid. This is a good person, and they deserve to have a chance at something." There's so much we can do as a mentor, even to the extent of, not to plug AOPA excessively, but they're a great organization. They have a 4-year STEM curriculum for high schools, which is free to
Right.
the school. All you have to
That's
do is
right.
apply. You get that STEM curriculum that prepares kids over that 4 years to understand the aviation industry and prepare them either to become drone pilots or pass their written as a manned aircraft pilot. What a tremendous opportunity. I taught that course for 5 months last year to fill in for a teacher. It's amazing what you can do with these kids who are looking for an opportunity, and all of a sudden you're presenting something that they perceive as sexy and exciting and gives them a real future. And instead of looking at working in the local carpet warehouse, I could go become a
Right.
pilot, an air traffic controller, an engineer, an aircraft mechanic. This is fantastic. I love that mentoring part and the STEM curriculum that it
And the
leads
beautiful
to.
thing about that particular program that you're talking about, Jamie, is that the teachers who teach it don't have to be pilots.
Mhm.
They don't have to have any kind of really any kind of educational background in aviation. This curriculum is absolutely 100% turnkey, and if they simply follow the presenter notes and just basically it's connect the dots, and it is quite an extensive, impressive curriculum. And as you said, it's free to qualifying high schools, and basically all you have to do is ask.
I can understand how a pilot, teacher who's not a pilot might be reticent to try the STEM curriculum, and you can go online and just check it out.
Right.
There's samples there. But you're right. It's written by pilots and it's written by flight instructors. So it's really detailed. It's got that whole teacher section. So if you don't understand what density altitude is, you will by the time you read through the lesson. And if you still have issues, there's a social media group on Facebook where you can go ask other teachers and AOPA staff, or just shoot them an email. Say, "Hey, I don't get that part. Can you help me?" That's really remarkable, because, as I often tell teachers who I talk to, you only have to be one day ahead of the class to be successful at this. And all the information's there. And I do know some teachers who started out teaching this and realized, I think I want to be a pilot. And they went and they applied for scholarships. Some
Yeah.
got them, some didn't. They got their pilot certificate. It changes everything. Their whole world opens up. I'm now teaching a whole different thing. And even for teachers, Pat, as you well know, They don't need to take the fundamentals of instruction from the FAA because they already
Right.
are teachers. If they take the basic or advanced ground instructor written test, which is the same material a private pilot or a
Right.
commercial pilot takes, they can now instruct ground instruction. They can get paid on their summers off teaching ground
And
school.
sign logbooks.
Yeah. Sign people up for
Well,
check
sign
rides and
people
things. You're
off to take
right.
the written test.
Written
Yeah.
test, written test.
But
Sorry. I just sometimes my brain gets ahead of my mouth and I have to reel it back in. It's a painful process, especially when it happens in public, but
it's
it
just
does
that
happen
you're so
surprisingly often.
enthusiastic, and that's okay. But an AGI or a ground instructor can sign off for written tests. But still, that's a big deal.
Oh yeah. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And there's another component of this that is largely misunderstood or just people don't even know it's there. There is such a thing as a high
Yes, there
school
is.
aero club, which is different than an adult flying club where we're trying to get access to an airplane for a lower cost for people who just want to fly recreationally. The Aero Club can get kids inside the airport fence, networking with people who work in the industry, becoming familiar with the businesses and the jobs that there, and they kind of find their own way. Do you want to be a pilot or a mechanic or an engineer? Maybe you like the office work. You want to be an administrator. And I have dealt with kids in high school aero clubs who want all those things. Some even want to be an airport director one day. This is their way in, and they start finding out what it's really like. It's kind of like Mike Rowe's
Right.
dirty jobs, kind of go out there and try things, but in an aeronautical realm, and it really
There's so
does
many
work.
opportunities out there, um, even not just flying airplanes. Airport manager, as you mentioned, I mean, somebody has to design airports, and there are going to be more airports in the future. Somebody's got to design them. Somebody has to design airplanes. Somebody has to design spaceships. Somebody has to design interiors for airplanes and spaceships. Somebody's got to give physicals to the people that are going to be flying these various vehicles. So aerospace medicine, um, somebody's got to um, forecast the weather for these flying vehicles, launches, and commercial aviation and what have you. There are so many opportunities out there in aviation that are not necessarily on the flight deck. If for someone perhaps
Mhm.
perhaps somebody can't pass a medical, but really wants to be involved in aviation, there are other ways to do that as well.
I often tell people aviation has pretty much every job with the exception of cosmetologist and hairdresser. But pretty much everything else, lawyers, doctors, inventory specialists, purchasing agents,
Right.
everybody, it exists in aviation generally at a better rate of pay than the non aviation equivalent job. And it just opens up the whole field. It's pretty remarkable. And I got to say, I personally love that high school aero club thing. I've been involved with
Right.
some of them directly. I just talked to a guy yesterday in South Carolina and another in Iowa who are looking at doing that in their area. And the great thing, Pat, is they can be totally unique
Right.
to what you want. It doesn't have to be about flying. It could be about maintenance. It could be about engineering. It could be about dispatchers or doing weight and balance and figuring out flight plans and that sort of thing. Whatever you want to do, you can do in a high school aero club. And they qualify as a 501c3 tax exempt organization if you do it correctly. The one here in my town that I helped found has had 4 airplanes donated to them, actual airplanes, because there's a tax benefit. So if you start one and you do it right, whether that's a maintenance airplane that's never going to fly again, or whether that's something that's actually going to be airworthy that your students will fly, it's possible. And while you sit and think, well, I'm just one person, so am I. So is
And
Pat.
and
You
you're an
can
A and
do
P
this.
too, which means that you can go into that hangar and work with these kids and mentor them through the rebuilding process. Because I think you were telling me that these kids are actually rebuilding these airplanes. They're restoring these airplanes.
Yeah, we've actually had kids because I'm an A&P and we had another volunteer who was an A&P. The kids get to log the time towards their A&P. Airframe and power plant mechanic is the only license the FAA offers that you can do through experience. And one great kid, James, I met him when he was 15. He started working on airplanes. He wanted to be a mechanic, like down at the
Right.
local Jiffy Lube or something. He is now working at a flight school as an apprentice mechanic, getting paid to get his A&P, and he does line service. It's a remarkable opportunity, and this kid's just happy as can be. The opportunities are
Yeah.
truly limitless in this. Pat, I commend you because you are an excellent
Thank
mentor to all these kids. I've gotten to do a bit of that myself. But if I could come away from this life, this career, knowing that I helped some kids get a little farther down the road, and I encouraged some folks to help them, because in 1974, Pat, long haired hippie Jamie went to his geometry teacher at school and said, "Hey, the Navy recruiter is here, and I think I want to be a naval aviator. So I'd like to get out of class today." And to this day, I can remember Miss Horniak looking at me and saying, "You're never going to be a pilot. Go
You're
sit
kidding.
down."
Wow. But
No, that
we've
happened.
talked about this before, but there's a young lady I think that's in one of your the aero club that you're talking about, who had a similar situation happen with one of her
Oh,
people.
Denira. Yep. She was told you can't do it. You had to start as a
Yeah,
freshman. Idiotic. But, my own daughter, one of my kids at a high school class once, they asked everybody, "What do you want to be when they grow up?" And my daughter said, "I want to be an F-22 pilot." And female teacher said, "That's a man's job, honey. You got to pick something else." The fact that you can mentor kids, the fact that you can tell kids with a straight face and a little bit of awareness anything you want to do, from working at the local flight school to working at the Space
right.
Coast on SpaceX stuff, or anything in between. That's all available to you. Doesn't matter what height you are, what color you are, what gender you are. If you want to do it, this is a meritocracy. Go do it. And in high
You sure
school, you can
can.
start that
So,
process.
kids, if anybody is watching this thing, watching these two old boomers talking, call us. Let us know what we can do to help you, because we will be more than happy to. And our emails are available to you. So we're happy to help any way we can.
Absolutely. If y'all think this is interesting, I don't care if you're 14 or if you're the principal of a high school or you're a parent who's involved with a homeschool group, leave us a comment down below. Seriously, we read those. We'll get back to you. Leave us some contact information. Pat and I do this all the time. We absolutely love it. You can do this. Your kids can do this. Your school can do this. And there's a whole staff of
Yeah.
people willing to help you. So, on behalf of the great and powerful Pat Brown in downtown Houston, Texas, I'm Jamie Beckett from MadPropsAero saying, consider doing some STEM training in high school, and you're going to have a whole different future. We'll catch you next time.
Adios.